I'm working this morning down at our neighbor's field where we do our potatoes, our garlic, and a whole bunch of nursery stuff. And I thought I would do a little update here. I'm just about ready to wrap up for the morning. Lots going on in these fields. There's one behind me here. Lots of transitioning from garlic there. There's one in the middle with a bunch of nursery, and then a far end with potatoes. I'm going to make this a relatively quick update because I'd like to go eat some breakfast. But I thought it'd be a fun opportunity to show what's going on in the gardens down at our neighbor's spot. So stick around. I'll start with the Southernmost Block here. If you follow the channel closely, you'll know the arc of this, but I'll give an update or a background for folks that are interested. So what we're looking at here, this is the second year of production in this space, in this particular block. This was a field, basically looked like sod, and spring of last year. And in May of 2022, last year, we planted all this out to potatoes. I'll link here to a video or a few over time showing that whole process. You can now see the permanent raised beds here. The potatoes went in last spring. We hilled them, we harvested them in the fall. It was then planted to garlic with nursery crops through the middle. And so what you're seeing here is where there was garlic, and I'll talk about what's been following the garlic since our harvest this July. But in the middle of this bed, for example, are all these gorgeous peach seedlings. That's this friend here. It's cool with some sage next to them transplanted in for some protection. It's got a similar look, but very different purpose. But those peaches were planted in with the garlic the day of planting of the garlic last fall. And now they are the canopy. That's a pattern we've used extensively now. Really like it. Pretty low complexity to plant tree seeds with garlic. And so I'll link to that here as well if you're interested. But peach is all throughout. The garlic is gone, and so the follow-up crops are here, which I'll show. And same thing in here. You can see chestnut through the middle of this bed. The follow-ups on this one where the garlic came out kind of faltered. But let's look at this bed for a moment. This one worked. So again, this bed about 3 feet wide roughly. 2 or 3 rows of garlic, tree seeds in the middle, 2 or 3 rows of garlic, probably 2 rows of garlic on the side. And what we've done in this particular bed, the peaches will stay until the fall. We'll dig them out. We transplanted in a bunch of basil, and I'll show in the back of my truck. I have a whole bunch of starts right now. I mentioned Countryside. It's an Amish-run small nursery and grocery store up in Interlaken, New York. I want to give them another shout out. Call Daniel. He's got ridiculous, beautiful plants grown in good media, and a lot of what's in this field thriving right now, like these basils, were bought wholesale from them of old starts, quote unquote old starts, and this is what they look like now. So we need to do our first harvest. Oh my God, that smells good to touch. They're starting to flower, but it's nice to leave the flowers for the bees for a bit. But we'll be doing bulk basil harvest here. But those plugs basically went in a day or two after the garlic came out. On the south of them, I think we tried to sow carrots and it didn't work, but I can drill some holes here with a cool little tool I just invested in that allows me to drop in plugs. And so this will fill it out. I direct sowed, it didn't work, so now we can drop in plugs. On the north side, it worked decently well. We've got black Spanish round radish seeds, and so this will be a fall crop. We'll have to thin through here. We'll again let the bees have some enjoyment, and then pull the ones that are bolting and thin them down a bit for a fall winter harvest. So from raw field last spring to potatoes to then garlic with nursery to now a bunch of annual crops with nursery transitioning to the fall. It's really functional. I found this drill bit online. I will write in the description what it is. This is a thing that fits into a standard cordless drill. I have to do it on a low speed. But what you can do, it does not work with mulch, but you can see on a low speed, kind of careful, two-handed is better. But that'll make a hole that I can then drop a plug into. And so preparing this bed, these are all kohlrabi, little transplants. That took about 3 to 5 minutes to make the holes, 3 minutes or so to plant in. The far end is celery because it's wetter down there. And working with plugs, these are pretty root bound, but it seems like cole crops in general, if they're root bound, you can bury them a little deeper, they'll root up the stem. Same thing with tomatoes to some extent, actually to a very big extent. The parsley and the celery is a different story, but most of these are fall cole crops that'll be going in. And so a nice deep hole, I can pack them in with some soil up the stem so they can root up that, and then we'll side dress with compost and wash in some compost tea. We should be able to get a pretty significant amount of food from around 500 of these starts. We are trading with them now. We're going to help them kickstart a perennial plant nursery up at Countryside. They were wondering if we'd be in competition, and to my mind, this is such an amazing resource that the idea of this Amish nursery selling all sorts of cool stuff like Good King Henry and elderberry and currants just feels way more rad than concerning. So that'll be something we'll share more notes as that unfolds. A fun experiment this season that is a stupefyingly beautiful success is direct sowing summer squash following garlic. Who'd have figured? So these are seeds pushed in the day of garlic harvest. I'm going to guess, I'll say let's July 20th, and it is now the end of August. So this is about 40 days later, and these are cocazelles. We need to harvest quite a bit more frequently in here, but the idea of pulling a garlic crop and pushing in seed for summer squash and having this immensity of soil coverage plus pound after pound of beautiful summer squash. I didn't think that was possible. I'm really excited to do this at a bigger scale next year. I think our garlic crop will be followed at least in 1 or 2 full beds with summer squash, and then we can donate a bunch or process a bunch for the winter. But in 40 days from seed, in full sun and rich soil, this has been an incredibly nice treat. Here's another bed where they were sown out, a little less successful. I think it was probably planted around the same time. Could be a biodynamic thing of a couple days off. It might have been the wrong day to plant. I suspect it's that there's a lull here and it's really wet when it rains a lot, and we have definitely had a lot of rain. So still very functional. It seems as though these smaller ones are still making some nice little cuties. Hey, I like it. My sock matches that flower almost perfectly. Even just for the flowers, this is worthwhile, but the fact that we're getting a pretty solid yield of summer squash as a follow-up to garlic, and then these will melt with first frost and we can follow them with cuttings or some sort of perennial nursery stuff. Really neat additional trick for the toolkit. This bed's really working out nicely. This has got the persimmons, American persimmons in the middle. It was garlic before. We've got beets. For some reason, both beets and carrots are faltering pretty intensely. I think the rains have been immense and have been problematic for them to get going, and this part of the field's a little bit wet, but they're here. We'll have to see. I keep hand weeding, but I wouldn't call the beets a huge success, and I certainly would call the carrots a complete abject failure. That is why you won't see any carrots in this video, despite a few ounces of seed going down. But American persimmons growing really nicely. Again, that black Spanish round radish or watermelon radish being a great filler crop. Cover the soil and give us a beautiful yield in the fall. And we're starting to add the perennials into here. So these are aromatics. This is thyme. There'll be oregano. Really nice, easy way to fill in. Same thing here. Parsley just dropped in. Nice plugs. Parsley is so hard for me to grow direct from seed. So getting plugs of them or starting them and transplanting them out is a lot nicer. I'm going to fill my mouth with parsley for a moment, swig some water, and talk some more. So we'll pause. My cabbages are cranking now. Now that they've got good coverage and we've weeded around them pretty thoroughly, I think what I can do is side dress again with compost. They're such heavy feeders. I make compost tea and I give them kind of more raw compost from the chicken yard, and they feel like they just want every drop of it. These are on good spacing with the idea of letting them mature to the late fall, and we'll take that crop and hopefully store it in the root cellar so that we can make sauerkraut at our leisure in the winter. But they're starting to head up a little. It's nice and tight there. We want to give them all the time they can get. Just watch in October for that first frost and plan to get them shortly thereafter, unless it's going to be such a deep frost as to injure them. But they'll sweeten up a bit, and they're just gorgeous in the field, and there's lots of them. This is the first year really focusing on putting annuals in that are started in a good way, either our own stuff or from leaning into another supplier like that Countryside crew up in Interlaken. They just do a good job. And having these starts, putting them on the 18-inch or the 20-inch or 24-inch spacing right out of the gate just gives them the space they need, and then lots of room to mulch and feed. A little weedier down here, but that seems to be the trick or the deal with all these really wet spots. The weeds just run past me a little bit faster than I'd like. I thought I'd have some time to look at the middle field and the northern field where the potatoes are, but this video has gone on quite a bit longer than I thought, and I need to wrap up and get some food and do some other things. So that's it for this video. Lots and lots going on. Really very, very pleased with the fundamental arc of taking a field that is in a weedy way, a sod or just an abandoned hayfield, what have you. Year one, committing to potatoes, harvesting potatoes, and following with garlic / nursery, harvesting garlic. And so this is the end of year two, or the second half of year two. It's weedy in patches for sure, but the total amount of yield that we've extracted so far without machines needing to be here, I've been extremely pleased with it. We pulled 1,000 pounds of garlic out of here in July, and we'll probably pull an equivalent amount of fall crops once these maturate. And then it's game on from there. It goes in any direction. These are permanent raised beds that by this fall should be almost entirely weed free, really nicely shaped, really deeply fed, and having shared a yield at every step. It feels pretty thorough and gentle and really functional. But we'll explore the other areas another time soon. Lots going on over there. We'll look at the amaranth and the sunflowers, the potato crop, and some of these beautiful, huge perennial aspects, some river locust and trees that are in here for their second year or third year. But that'll be another time. Thanks so much for watching.